even if there's like a specific, hey, can't do this right now, the chemo treatment's delayed, I'm gonna be here an extra 4 hours, and still feeling like saying like, I need this today, is, you find out that there's a business you want to run and a business you don't want to run. And it really just separates it even from money at that point.
How do you keep a family business going in the middle of a health crisis when the personal takes center stage? How does a new owner make the decision to specialize in a business while also honoring the parent that established those relationships? And how do you learn to trust your own instinct and learn on your own, even if it might fail, rather than travel the tried and tested route that you've stepped into? This is the Art of Succession podcast. I'm your host, Barrett Young, and my guest today is Jim Morrow, the CEO of Agency CPAs, a remote accounting firm originally based out of New York City, which provides tax planning, CFO, and accounting services for digital agencies. Jim, welcome to the Art of Succession.
Thanks for having me, Barrett. Appreciate it.
So let's do a little bit of history before we dive into your first topic here. So give me a little bit of time frame and what brought you to Agency CPAs.
Yeah, so my story is a story of taking over a family-run business. So my father, growing up, always ran a small bookkeeping firm. Never really had any interest in being part of it. So going that route, he kind of pushed me into accounting, just interested in numbers. And I started off Big Four at PwC and Ernst & Young. And was going that route for a while, probably would have done fairly well there. And that was during Superstorm Sandy. And they had me working long hours, doing tax work. And they then signed a contract with National Grid, who was the utility provider supporting all of the downed networks during then. And EY sold a lot of their staff to National Grid. And I was to fly up to Buffalo in the middle of the winter and man call lines. So I already had a little foot out the door, and that was a push. So first thing I did was, put in my resignation, not really sure what I wanted to do. And I decided to go help my dad out a little bit. It was not a financial interested decision. There was no money to pay me at the time, but gave it a try, and slowly over the next few years was able to carve a little salary out for myself, and it actually started to line up with what I was doing at Ernst & Young, and we were turning the firm around a little bit. But then it was 2017, and he got a cancer diagnosis that was not good.
Okay. I want to talk about that before we jump in there, though. Give me a little context about those 4 years leading up to 2017. You guys were still a bookkeeping firm, or had you added any services? How did you find clients to give yourself a little bit of a salary joining him?
Really good question. So the firm was Bookkeeping USA, and we were just doing bookkeeping and some tax prep for clients. And when I came in, the accounts receivable balance was huge. My dad I learned that my dad ran the company as a social place. So as long as his bills were getting paid, and he checked the social boxes, like he had the friends through the business, he was good.
Danny.
I didn't realize that was okay for him, but it wasn't okay for me.
So kind of like the cliche, I just want clients that I can sit down and have a beer with. Your dad took that literally into the nth degree.
Literally.
Whether they can pay me or not, as long as we're having a good time.
Yeah, and I think he came from he was the CFO for, pretty big companies, and I think he just hated that environment. Similar for maybe why I hated the Big Four environment.
Okay.
So he just was less tethered to money. I wanted to get paid, right? So we made some changes, started collecting some accounts receivable, shedding clients that were not paying. And like a lot of firms, like you just grow word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that I was in there, we started doing different types of work, and I improved the function. So we just were getting more referrals.
Okay.
So that really took us to a spot where, hey, we collected some old money and brought in some new customers, and I was able to get a paycheck.
Okay. Low-level services, mid-level services, what would that kind of look like at this stage?
It was low.
Okay.
It's going to be bookkeeping write-up,
Mm-hmm.
doing the work remote,
Okay.
which was not as common in 2012, and he even did it before, well before. So low-end bookkeeping work, tax work, work that I tried to get away from that I ended up coming even back to.
Hey.
But nothing special.
All right, so you've been working with them for a couple of years. You're adding your own clients, and that's how you get paid leading up to this point. But still general clients, like you said, referrals from existing clients, just anybody that needs bookkeeping, tax services kind of thing.
Yep, and I remember the first client we brought on, handshaking, and we were in New York City, so we were going to the prospects to get the business.
Yeah.
And nothing like we do now. But yep, just came in. Hey, you need your bookkeeping done. It's a mess. We can do your return. The pitch was we can do it cheaper.
Good.
And it was still profitable for us, and that's the type of client we were working with then.
7-figure business, 6-figure business. We're about there if you don't.
6-figure businesses.
Okay. All right. And so that brings us to 2017. And so now you continue. Your father had a cancer diagnosis.
Yep. Pretty much out of nowhere. He was slowing down. But we took him to the hospital one day, and it was pretty aggressive lymphoma.
Hey.
And kind of everything dropped for me. And I was able to be with him through the entire process. Most days, emails can be done on my phone, waiting in hospital rooms. And there wasn't really a question for what I was going to do. The reason I think I was able to do it, though, is that he wasn't providing output work in the firm.
Hey.
And we had people doing the bookkeeping, and we had someone doing the tax work. So the blocking and tackling was getting done, and we were not integral to that part as much.
Okay.
And that I think allowed me to, I would have dropped everything anyway, but the work was still going on.
So that's definitely different than you hear most solopreneurs or, sole proprietors, where they are the linchpin that everything goes through. So you guys had already worked yourself out of that before this unexpected diagnosis. So that's actually a little bit of foresight there, or just good on you guys for doing that.
Yep. And it's kind of a byproduct of that, my dad wanted us he was running more of a social business.
Hey.
So the work he was doing, adds rapport, keeps clients around. But if he stepped away for a few months, like he couldn't do the tax return if he tried, So having that in place was really helpful.
So kind of by default, he was more of like a rainmaker or bringing the business in.
Yeah.
And that's just how his personality preferred it. And so it allowed the business to continue running. Okay. And at this point, were you already a partner in the company? Was it 50-50? Was there already plans for succession?
I was not a partner.
Okay.
Or owner in any sense.
Uh-huh.
It was implied that there was succession. But none of that had been discussed. Just a W-2 for me.
And your role was also still more you said you had people doing the technical tax returns and the bookkeeping so that you were able to be there through all of his appointments and everything. So were you also bringing in clients like the rainmaker kind of position at this time then?
The clients I was working on, because I was still trying to prove myself, I was providing basically like a CFO service and getting in deep with advisory work in a very unprofitable way. So the equity that I built up with those clients, they were extremely respectful.
Yeah.
And there was one that I remember who wasn't. And once we kind of came out of the other side, it was clear who we were working with, who we weren't, and things to look for in future relationships. But you do unfortunately get some people like that are not willing to go through whatever you're going through with you.
Yeah, they're like, the work still needs to get done. Just make sure it gets done. That kind of approach to it.
And even if there's like a specific, hey, can't do this right now, the chemo treatment's delayed, I'm going to be here an extra 4 hours, and still feeling like saying like, I need this today is, you find out that there's a business you want to run and a business you don't want to run. And it really just separates it even from money at that point.
Okay, so your father's got this diagnosis. It's going to be a long-term treatment and recovery, and possibly never come back to the business, as it turns out, never steps back into the business. At what point did you start to say, I need to take control of this? We're not just maintaining. There needs to be, I'm going to step into this and make sure that there's a business here when Dad's better.
Yeah, the first thing was just making sure there's income for our family. And it was it was probably 80% chance he wasn't going to make it, or it felt almost certain. And at that point, it was my firm mentally. So we started operating it differently. Started operating it as a for-profit business.
Okay.
While still, getting him to his appointments and running back and forth on the subway. But I would say almost immediately I started operating it as my business. And it took such a toll on him that I think it was like 8 months that he was at some type of facility. So it was almost a year of me running a firm without any support, anybody to check into. So you really find out a lot. And then when he came out of a facility, it was the conversation of, hey, we are doing things very differently now. There's not really a spot for you here. You can stay involved just kind of on an advisory level. But I did push there was a decision to be made. Does he want the firm back? With no one that would want to work under the old rules at our firm? Or does he want to start a transition where I would buy the company from him?
Wow. What was going through your mind when you started having those conversations with Dad?
I was at the end, a year of fighting through all of that. Working in some place you don't want to work in beforehand, making it into an environment where you do. I learned how to build a business. In my head, I was like, I'm going to do this. I'll do this here, or I'll do this on my own somewhere else.
Hey.
And there wasn't really an option for him because there was nothing, the people that worked there would not have stayed on because it's just, they would have wanted to come with me. And it was basically my willingness to not integrate him back in.
So, I mean, you said a little bit ago that the technical work was still getting done, but there were very clearly some things that were broken that once you stepped in and saw and took more of leadership within the firm, you saw how broken they were, or you saw the opportunity to change what you already knew was broken? Which one?
I had the opportunity to actually change the environment. I always knew what was there, but easy clients to cut. Not everything is a rush order when he gets an email from a client. Yeah. So just people we worked with and how we did the work, and everybody responded to that.
Okay. So the first move then was trimming down the client list before the new business was coming in, just building some capacity there?
Yeah, we trimmed a lot.
Okay.
Probably almost half of our revenue that on an accrual basis that wasn't getting paid. So people that probably should have been out of business anyway.
And this is before any kind of decision about moving the company in a niche direction then? You just were like, we need space. We need to be able to breathe.
We need space. There's just not worth... I could always have gone back to Big Four. So there was like an option. So it was, let's work with people who we want to work with. And the clients that I brought in that I was going deeper with, a few of them happened to be marketing firms.
Okay.
And that just said, you hear niche down. And, one day I just went to a marketing conference and said we were agency CPAs, and before the company existed, got some interest and, popped up a new brand. Same team, and we've been off and running since.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into that because that's always the hard part. When you take over a business, there's this balance of how do we know what's been successful that's allowed the business to get to this point, and how do we know what to change and how soon? So I definitely want to get into that a little bit more. But you said you already had some marketing agencies. Were you already doing the higher level services that you wanted to be doing for those clients, or you talked to them and then said, I want to be doing this. Can we do this for you?
We were already doing that work. So when I went to this conference, I said, we do X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
But I was able to say that because I've already been going deep.
And these are marketing agencies you had brought on in your 4 to 5
Yep.
years that have been there? Okay, gotcha. All right. And the staff jumped at the idea of niching down, or was there reluctance there? This isn't the way your dad would have done it, or how much of that?
So yeah, my dad started the business, and he brought in he always recruited out of college people, no experience, and built them up.
Okay.
And he brought in one woman in college, no tax bookkeeping experience, and she's like, hey, I want to learn tax. So he let her. And we started doing some tax work before I was there.
Go ahead.
And she's built our tax practice since. So when I ended up taking the firm owner, the first thing I did was bring her on as a partner.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was... She fought through everything with me. She was there, through it all. She was there longer. And it wasn't even a question that she was a partner. So adding her was the first decision I did into the equity. And she is so supportive. I was like, hey, I want to try this thing. And it's always go for it. She'll rein me in when I'm, going a little over the place. But she'll always let me try and experiment, which has been integral to our growth. And it's really, if I have her buy-in, we have the firm's buy-in.
Key employee for sure.
Yeah.
And just an influencer among the rest of the team. So at this point, your dad had already was in remission, and you'd already arranged a buyout so that you could bring in a partner, or had you already had those conversations before? Like you said, the firm was effectively going to be yours, and you're already starting to talk to this partner.
The buyout was more, it's like, hey, will you let me take this thing over?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer was pretty quickly yes.
Okay.
His financial position wasn't great. The firm wasn't really worth anything. So there was this, hey, I'm going to pay something for it, but also, he's my father and I need to support that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So we just had an ongoing buyout. There was a value on it, but it's exceeded it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty quick. And then I was like, hey, Tiffany's my partner. I'm like, we've done the ownership change. I'm going to bring you on. And there was not much discussion around it. It was pretty much agreed and everyone was on board.
I gotcha. Okay. A lot of this is just fortunate. Right place, right time, it sounds like. We had talked a little bit before the call started. this happens all the time in sole proprietor firms where something just interrupts life and you don't have a succession plan in place. You don't have a buyer. I'm on the board for my the state board of accountancy, and we are hearing about work paper disputes and things like that all the time. A widow doesn't know how to provide the paperwork that former clients are asking for. So yeah, I mean, you're definitely in a position to honor your dad and support your dad and, you know, support the family. But all of the value in that firm, it sounded like at this point, was because of the work that you'd been doing in those 8 to 10 months leading to him coming back.
And it's even back to that that Sandy happened and they sold me off to Buffalo. And if I was still working at EY, Tiffany, my business partner, leaves.
Yeah.
Because she couldn't hold the fort down and it would have been chaos. And he would have zero. And our family is in a significantly worse financial position. So I think everything happens for a reason.
Okay.
And, luckily everything was aligned. But, I mean, the company without me being transitioned is worth zero. And unfortunately, I think that's happening all over the place.
Did you ever feel any pressure that you had to? I mean, you did say you could always go back to E&Y. Did you ever feel like Dad saw you as his ticket out before the cancer scare or anything like that? Was there ever any pressure to...
He definitely didn't.
Okay.
But I don't think he did not plan for it.
Fine.
And he always told me he's not my responsibility. But that's just not a reality.
No.
Because I think parents can say that, but when push comes to shove, they are a responsibility. And most people probably feel that pull, and I think a lot of people behind closed doors are actually supporting in ways that we don't even see. So he did not have any plan. He did not have anything planned for what took place.
Uh-huh.
So it was really just that we were set up to handle that succession.
So one of the things that you said that you wanted to talk about here is that sometimes you have to try things out on your own. So you stepped into a business that Dad founded it. He's got these clients. He's got, this is what we do here. This is who we do it for. And you said sometimes you need to try things out on your own. You can't receive everything from family, and you got to run into walls on your own to figure them out. So what were these walls that you're thinking of when you wrote this down?
Yeah, there's things that basically everything my father said to do, I was going to do the opposite. And it was just because of him. It's, your father, you're just not, you can do it better. You read a blog, you listen to a podcast, you immediately just have to go like, we're going to do this tomorrow for everybody.
Dad, business has changed. It's not the way that it used to be.
Yeah, you dummy.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know. You started a firm from scratch, but you know nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
yep. Okay. So the brashness of every entrepreneur that's like, I'm going to go out and do this on my own, but it's also directed at a parent.
Directed, I'm gonna change everything you did. You did everything the wrong way. And I mean, he did, right? It was bookkeeping and tax work, and the world's changing, and you're gonna go out of business if you do that boring work. We're gonna do CFO, advisory, fancy charts. Every business needs it and wants it. So that's what I did.
Okay.
And gave no attention to the bookkeeping work and all of my attention to this advisory work.
Mm-hmm.
And there is just so many things that I did wrong. And I got really good, going deep. But if you ran a P&L of my revenue against my cost, it was so negative. And the only reason those accounts were positive was because this boring, bad bookkeeping and tax work. So coming out of it was, hey, we need to we can do some fancy stuff on the top. We can do that work, and we need to be selective with it.
Yeah.
And it can't lose money. But there's a lot of value to being consistent, reliable, and doing work that people need.
Hey.
And I don't need to love it, and I don't need to be involved in it, but I do need to set up systems that my clients can rely on. And that is something that he set up from day one that allowed him to have this grab a beer with the client firm that I did not acknowledge. And, we've come back to it, but now with a deep, deep expertise from our advisory work. So it probably took us a little longer to get there. And I would not have received the messaging from him of how important that work is to just keeping the lights on.
Okay. How long did that take you to learn that? And was it expensive?
It took a long time. And what I didn't realize is, over the years, you have some clients that are big and profitable, and you take them for granted. So we had some clients that we did really big bookkeeping work for. And the margins were 50%, nothing fancy, but good. Sometimes 40%, sometimes 30%, but larger revenues. And I just didn't like the work. So that work gave me the ability to do the advisory. It never would have been there. Once a few of those clients transitioned, it kind of unveiled itself that, what you're doing over here, they've been covering up your unprofitable work. So pretty quickly we had to make some changes, reallocate some of my time, bring on some clients that looked a little same and have a different product mix. I would say, 3 to 4 years, but
okay, we
figured it out.
Once those clients transitioned away from you, no longer needed the higher level CFO thing. Is that what you mean by that?
The clients were more bookkeeping focused, and I was more of a project manager on top of it.
Okay.
So just making sure, moving well, keeping the people doing the work out of the politics of the job. And these clients, two in particular, just outgrew us.
Gotcha.
Like they were growing really fast. So they brought all of that in-house. And then to us, they're just a tax return. And they went, just to another firm to do their taxes.
So at the time, probably you were thinking, no big loss. It's lower value. It's lower level stuff. I don't enjoy doing anyways. But then shortly thereafter, you were just like, wow, I had no idea how much.
Where'd the revenue go?
Yeah.
And luckily by then we've diversified. So we have just, no one's more than like 7% of our revenue now.
Okay.
And that's just really helped. Where before we've had clients at 40%, 50%. And we luckily had enough time to add clients in the meantime. And those fortunately gave us really, really profitable years. But they were not sustainable. And you get to know who you can serve at the best amount of revenue you can charge them. And there's a place in which they start with you, and there's also a place where they finish with you. And understanding that, we're not for everybody and we're not forever. And that was really helpful, and we're able to serve people better with that view.
So you talked about diversifying, but also at the same time niching into agency CPAs. So you're talking about diversifying the services that you provide, or just not immediately saying every client is a higher level value client, but still staying within that agency CPAs niche that you're working in?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
But so we said if someone's coming to us wanting one product or service, we can't do it because we need an account to be at a certain price point. And we can usually only get there by pairing 2 of our 3 services. So it's going to be a tax return in bookkeeping. It'll be a tax return in advisory. And that let us serve clients deeper and change who we're addressing. Some people can't consume all of that. So we're probably going upstream from 6-figure businesses to 7 or 8. So a little bit of both.
But getting out of the tax only or the bookkeeping only, or we need to be in more contact with you. We need you to need more of what we can do in order for you to stay on here.
No, that's exactly right. That's the view from our end. We need you to be at a price point, and we need to have a deeper relationship. But they just need better service, and most of the time, someone's not offering that, and they just need it.
Okay.
So, and you unfortunately need to be at a certain revenue profit level to consume that, and we were able to step in for a lot of those agencies.
What's the future for agency CPAs? Like, do you have your own succession planning? How has what your dad has gone through helped you process and think about your own retirement, whether it's planned or unplanned? What's that look like?
Really good question. Tiffany, my business partner, and I talk about that a good amount.
Okay.
And luckily, we're really aligned. And we love where we're at. Client size, team size, are how we enjoy the work. So we have no view of selling. And we look at it as one client, one employee at a time. I'm 35, so I don't need to really think about that anytime soon. And, we've had conversations with other firms of, key man risk. The firm's built on me, at least as the focus, and just to have somebody else step in there if something was to unfortunately happen to me. And that's less about my family being supported financially and more about the team, keeping the environment that we have, and that can continue. So other than that, we haven't really looked down the road at how we would want to set up a succession.
Sure. But
we change our minds a lot. So that could be a different story next year.
Yeah. I mean, we've got 20, 30 years ahead of you still. But I'm just wondering if, you go through something big like that in your family, it causes you to think different about your own invincibility or your own, mortality and things. So it's caused you to partner with or have some kind of an agreement with firms that would be able to step in and take that load if necessary.
So how I think about my family is through life insurance and disability. And then how I think about my firm is, can somebody kind of replicate me, treat my clients well, and treat my team well?
Yeah.
And am I going to maximize every dollar for my family that way? No.
Yeah.
But I'll maximize the people's lives that we call our business.
So you have redundancies within your own team then?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, great. So one of the things I like to do at the Art of Succession is I've got a lightning round of questions that I want to ask at the end as we wrap up our episode. So I've got a series of half a dozen questions or so, and these are two sentences, really no context, but just a lightning round. So are you ready? Ready for the lightning round?
Let's go.
All right, first question, coffee or tea?
Definitely coffee. Usually go with an AeroPress or Chemex if I'm making it for me and my wife.
Okay, gotcha. Pie or cake?
I'll do key lime pie if it's on the menu.
All right, specific kind of pie. Awesome. What is a common belief among entrepreneurs that you would want to challenge?
I push all my clients to, and not everyone will agree, but to push off any retirement savings until the company is cash healthy.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that is definitely contra a financial advisor's perspective.
I look at it as a pull out of the business, and I see too many businesses fail because of money pulls. So it's a temporary pause in my view.
Temporary pause. Okay, so not 20 years, but if you're not cash healthy by that point, you got a bigger issues, right?
Exactly.
Okay. What's your favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Christmas. Okay. Are you a morning person or a night person? And do you have a favorite routine?
I'm a morning. My wife's a night.
Morning. Opposites. Yep. Do you have a favorite routine for mornings?
Coffee. Coffee, get outside, walk the dog. Post-tax season, play fetch with the dog in the morning. It's great.
What is one thing that you would want your successor or somebody that you've inspired in this profession to remember you for?
Just that I'll leave it better than I found it.
Where are you finding creativity right now for your own journey?
Oddly enough, my outlet's the gym, and working with a new trainer who's got me doing some stuff that makes me think, and that gives me something that's not behind a computer that I'm touching, and I'd have to say working with Antonio right now.
Okay. Yep. Energy from different sources for sure.
Yep.
Last question. What's coming up for Agency CPAs that has you really excited in the near term, next year or so?
I can't shut up about hiring internationally right now.
Okay.
So we just brought on a rock star out of the Philippines.
Hey.
And I am blown away by the talent and the attitude about work. So we see a lot of growth there for our firms, but also, helping our agencies grow that way too.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of all I can think about right now. So that's probably 2024 focus for us.
Okay. Additional hires or just...
Additional hires, helping our clients hire, because their margins are getting squeezed, and my eyes have kind of been open.
Gotcha. Okay. I know I said no context, but if you're helping your clients do this, then you're not going through an accounting specific staffing agency then for this. You're finding them all independently. Direct. Okay. All right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Jim, where can our listeners find out more about you and about Agency CPAs?
You can find our website, agencycpas.com, or I'll be on LinkedIn.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate you being on the Art of Succession.
Awesome. Thanks, Barrett.